So Donald Trump, what is he, like 72? He's over 70 years old. Donald Trump gets off the plane from Vietnam. He's been, screaming at Kim Jong-un. He goes to CPAC, right? And he talks off script for 2 hours. And of course, the audience loves him and they go crazy. And some of it was absolutely hilarious. Some of it was hilarious. I'm just going to start with a longish clip because it gives if you missed the speech, it was wild. It was wild. I mean, he was 2 hours he went. And obviously the written speech must have been like 45 minutes long. And he was just rambling, going from thing to thing in middle of sentences the way he does. And yet it was weirdly a great speech. So play cut number 4. He goes off on this investigation, the Russian collusion thing.
I saw a little shifty Schiff yesterday. No, it's the first time. He went into a meeting and he said, we're going to look into his finance. I said, where did that come from? He always talked about Russia. Collusion with Russia. The collusion delusion. So now we're waiting for a report and we'll find out whether or not and who we're dealing with. We're waiting for a report by people that weren't elected. Think of this. We had the greatest election. In all fairness, I used to hear Andrew Jackson. This was now greater than the election of Andrew Jackson. People say that. No, people say it. I'm not saying it. Right? This was the equivalent or greater. They used to go to Ronald Reagan when I first started. This is Ronald Reagan. Then we started really doing well, and they were coming from everywhere to vote. Those red hats and white ones. The key isn't the color. The key is what it says. Make America great again. That's what it says. Right? But we had the greatest of all time. Now we have people that lost. And unfortunately, you put the wrong people in a couple of positions, and they leave people for a long time that shouldn't be there. And all of a sudden, they're trying to take you out with bullshit, okay? With bullshit.
We're bleeping the President of the United States. When I was a kid and I was in radio, worked in radio, I was trying to become a novelist, and before I could, just do that. So long ago, so help me, we had tape, those big reels, and you had to cut the tape, and you'd cut the tape with a razor. You probably have never even seen a razor blade that's not attached to a piece of plastic. This was just a razor blade, and you would sit there and cut that, and then you take out a piece of tape and you'd splice the tape together. You were not allowed to edit the President of the United States. If the President of the United States stuttered, if he said, you were not allowed to edit the President of the United States. It was not a law. It was just kind of journalistic integrity demanded that the President get to say whatever he wanted to say. We have to bleep this president. He actually is cursing on stage, which is just an amazing, amazing thing. And yet, everything he said, you know what he's saying, you understand what he's saying, everything he said is true. Adam Schiff and all the guys in Congress are now investigating all these things. They've opened investigations into obstruction. They're calling for 60 people to come and talk to them, and all these documents they're getting. And, this is a win-win for them. This is a win-win for the Democrats because it's Oppo research on the people's dime. Basically, whatever they find out, whatever they can come up with, if they get his tax returns, if they get whatever they get, they're not going to impeach him. I don't think. I don't believe that. They may be pushed to it, but I don't think they will. But they use that in 2020. They can throw that stuff at him, and you paid for it. You paid for the Oppo research, and that's what it is. And meanwhile, in the meantime, they just accuse him. Adam Schiff, this McCarthyite guy, he's my congressman. He really has behaved shamefully and shamelessly. He's now just throwing out charges. This is on Face the Nation, CBS.
We're also looking at persistent allegations that the Russians have been laundering money through the Trump organization. I don't know that that's true, but if it is, again, it's a profound compromise of this president.
You said you don't know that that's true. Who can answer that question for you? Who do you need to talk to?
Well, we'll need to talk to some of the banks that have been doing business with Mr. Trump, like Deutsche Bank, which has had a history of laundering Russian money. It was a bank, one of the very few, if only, that would do business with Mr. Trump after American banks refused. But we also will want to speak with the accountants, the chief financial officers for the Trump organization, and others who would have information about the Moscow Trump Tower deal, about the issue of money laundering. In fact, we're bringing Felix Sater in to talk about Moscow Trump Tower in a couple weeks. So there are any number of witnesses that can shed light on whether America's national security is compromised because the president has been pursuing financial interests with the Russians.
This is amazing. This is so appalling so appalling that their justice reporter, I think it was still on CBS, what's her name? Paula Reed, the justice correspondent, actually called him out after he was gone. Nobody said anything to him. I was saying they never asked him for proof. What are you talking about? How can you throw these things around? But finally, I mean, this is like Edward R. Murrow taking on McCarthy. Finally, some reporter has the guts to say that Adam Schiff is doing something that is wrong per se. Here she is, Paula Reed.
Also take issue with his claim that he has evidence of collusion. He seems to be conflating contact with collusion. He says what happened at Trump Tower was collusion. He's pointing to emails. Nothing was exchanged there. Same with the meeting that Paul Manafort had with Konstantin Kilimnik, exchanging polling data. We know there was contact. We know that, but we don't know what they did with that polling data. So we certainly have evidence of contact, but a criminal conspiracy, so far, there has not been sufficient proof for anyone to be charged in that.
And not only that, she said, when he was talking about the money laundering, she said, that's a hell of a claim to throw out there. She didn't use that language. She said, that is a wild claim to throw out there without any proof. And Schiff does that every day and nobody calls him out on it. And she finally did. Good for her. Actual journalism on TV. You don't see that very often. That's the other thing about Trump's speech. He was hilarious about the press. I mean, absolutely hilarious. And they're standing right there, which is great. And he had me laughing out loud. I mean, he had me laughing out loud. And because they do this stuff where they report everything breathlessly, every source who says a nasty thing, every source who says, oh, yeah, I heard Donald Trump say this, is in the New York Times right away. They don't check the source. You know, they don't have to check the sources. If it's too good, if it's against Donald Trump, it's too good to check. And he went after them for something that has bugged me as well. He went after the press for this thing where he said, he made a joke during the campaign, oh, I wish Russia would find Hillary Clinton's email. Obvious joke, obvious New York type joke, obvious Trump type joke. And they said, that's collusion. He's colluding right in front of us. And he talks about this. This was number 8.
So everybody's having a good time. I'm laughing. We're all having fun. And then that fake CNN and others say, he asked Russia to go get the emails. Horrible. I mean, I saw it like 2 weeks ago. I'm watching, and they're talking about one of the points. He asked Russia for the emails. These people are sick, and I'm telling you, they know the game. They know the game, and they play it dirty, dirtier than anybody's ever played the game. Dirtier than it's ever been played.
I mean, this is good stuff. He's absolutely right. You know, they went after Michelle Malkin because she blamed the ghost of John McCain for not being hard enough on immigration. It's like, oh, St. John? You said something mean about St. John? You know, because on the press, the only good Republican is a dead Republican. And so they finally love John McCain, who they loved right until in the moment he was running against Obama, and then they slaughtered him. So, you know, the fact that Michelle Malkin made a comment, you know, that was perfectly rational about the way he was in politics, perfectly fine. But let's just end with Trump, the Trump part of this, with his thing on the Green New Deal, which was just another part, had me laughing out loud.
The country's in big trouble, folks, because we have to get it back. And when I look at what's happening on the other side, I encourage it. I say, no, I think the new Green Deal, or whatever the hell they call it, the Green New Deal, right? Green New Deal. I encourage it. I think it's really something that they should promote. They should work hard on. It's something our country needs. Desperately, they have to go out and get it. But I'll take the other side of that argument only because I'm mandated to. But they should stay with that argument. Never change. Never change. No planes. No energy. When the wind stops blowing, that's the end of your electric. Let's hurry up. Darling? Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling.
I mean, it's good material. You know this speech. I mean, the speech was, watching it, you thought like, oh, Lord, this guy is out of his mind, because he was just all over the place. But when you thought about it, it all made sense. It all hung together. And you knew it was a good speech because of the press reaction. You knew it was a good speech because of the press reaction. We've got to go to CNN. At one point, Trump was talking about restoring our heritage, restoring America, make America great again. So much. One thing, you can always turn to CNN for so much historiizing. Okay, here's CNN's Sam Vinograd. She's asked this question. You got to listen to this amazing response.
Sam, the idea of preserving heritage taps into historically darker times. Certainly. Not only that, though, you say what we heard from the president in those remarks also could pose a national security concern.
Well, his statement makes me sick. On a personal level, preserving our heritage, reclaiming our heritage, that sounds a lot like a certain leader that killed members of my family and about 6 million other Jews in the 1940s. But on a national security level, the president talks about preserving our heritage as a catch-all for implementing policies that misallocate resources. He pretends that there are massive flows of illegal immigrants coming over our borders and is spending billions of dollars on a border wall emergency instead of paying attention to real national security threats. He sounds a lot like despotic leaders that have talked about white heritage and white nationalism around the world and is putting resources in the wrong place and pretending that there are foreign people trying to influence our country in a way that just isn't accurate.
So if you want to restore America freedoms, you are just like Adolf Hitler, who murdered 6 million Jews. If you say, let's restore American heritage, I mean, really? I mean, that's an amazing thing. I mean, is that when Barack Obama ran on change? Was that like Joseph Stalin because he wanted to change things? It's an amazing reaction. And the question, remember, was restoring our heritage. That goes back to darker times. Like what? What darker times? When like America founded the greatest country on earth? Is that the darker time you're thinking about? Is that like, why? What did he say anything about race? Did he say anything about, Jews or anything? It's an amazing piece of video. I mean, it's amazing that CNN has that woman on and nobody says, that girl's crazy. Those two women are talking nuts. Maybe we should take them off the air and get on people who talk about the news and talk about journalism. It's incredible. It is incredible. I mean, it's incredible that Trump is cursing on stage. That's kind of incredible, but it's only incredible because he's part of the times. This is what the times are like. Everybody's cursing. Everyone's cursing everywhere. No one has a clean mouth anymore. That's just part of the times. What she is saying is literally insane. And that's the thing that gets me. Trump, his demeanor is out there. And there's just no question. You compare him to other presidents we've had, certainly recently, certainly since the war, World War II, he's just really different. He's a real character. He's an enormous, weird, wild character. Some of the stuff he says, I don't like. Some of the way he behaves, I don't like. But he's making sense.